We are back today with more FM26 save ideas, and this week the focus continues to be crisis clubs. Just as with the last video on Monday, today we'll be introducing 3 more teams with points deductions, financial problems and squad issues ahead of the 2025-26 season, and we'll detail why they could be contenders for your FM26 career. If you missed part 1 on Monday, I will put a link to that up in the eye above. And a quick reminder before we start that you can also pre-order FM26 via my Fanatical link now for over 20% off Steam's price, advanced access, and to help support me too. Again, link in the eye above and description below. With that done though, let's head into part 2 of our FM26 point deduction challenges. We start with one that I think is going to be incredibly popular this year, and we move to the Netherlands for a complex case featuring a side that almost weren't an option to manage in FM26. I'm talking about the crazy story of Vitesse Arnhem and a spectacular recent decline. As recently as 2022, Vitesse were playing in the last 16 of the inaugural Europa Conference League, having reached the Dutch Cup final and finished 4th in the Eredivisie the previous season. So how did it all go so wrong? Well, law and politics, unfortunately, has played a huge part. The club is perhaps known in England for having close ties with Chelsea, including loan agreements for several key players throughout the 2010s. This was largely due to a relationship between Roman Abramovich and the Vitesse owner Valery Oif, with reports that he was involved in the deal for Vitesse to be taken over. Due to the political landscape, of course, both were forced to sell their respective clubs in 2022, and the following 3 years were messy, to say the least. US investor Coley Parry put money into the club with a view to a takeover, before this was then rejected by the Dutch Football Association. As a result, Parry inevitably wanted his money back, with the club's ownership and financial situation both then remaining uncertain. As a result of these challenges, an 18-point deduction was imposed on the club late in the 2023-24 season, leading to an inevitable relegation to the Dutch second tier. And the following season was even worse, with the club deducted a further 39 points, with 27 of those being up front. That contributed to another bottom place finish. The remaining 12 would be carried into this season, making the start of an FM26 career even more difficult too. In truth though, at one stage it looked like it was going to be a significantly worse outcome this summer. The Dutch FA revoked the club's professional licence in June 2025, again due to financial irregularities and ownership issues. The club lost its first appeal in July 2025 and went into August with no professional licence this year. After a further rejected appeal and with options to play in the amateur leagues now passed to, it looked like Vitesse would not be playing football at all this season. However, there was a huge outpouring of emotion and relief to follow, as on the 3rd of September, just a few weeks before planning this video, and under new ownership, having missed the start of the second tier season, the club got the reprieve it desperately craved. They won an appeal to provisionally regain their licence, allowing them back into the second league immediately. But despite this appeal decision not being fully binding, and further potential legal drama still possible in the future, for now, at least, Vitesse can finally focus on playing football again. With the transfer window already closed at the time of the decision, several amateur and free agent players offered their services to the club. Now you'll have a new look, a hastily thrown together squad, and be playing catch up from a 12-point deduction. It's a save that will be absolutely brilliant with the real-world database to provide a challenging start. So could a trip to the Netherlands be for you in FM26? If it is, Vitesse Arnhem is one hell of a shout for a save. As we move on to our second club, we reflect again on what a mess Serie C is this season. The third tier in Italy is featuring a lot in this year's save idea videos, but today it's the turn of Triestina, a side we briefly mentioned in Monday's episode. Although one of the founding members of Serie A back in 1929, it's not always been smooth sailing for this club, and in fact, desperation is probably the more appropriate term for their current plight. After spending much of their early history in the top tier, it's been over 65 years of lower league football for this once great Italian side. In more recent times, finances have unfortunately been the main talking point, as is the case for so many Italian lower league clubs at present, and after 2 previous liquidation and refoundation periods in 1994 and then 2012, the latter including a rebuild from the 5th tier of Italian football, Triestina find themselves back in huge trouble again in 2025. On the pitch, the club narrowly escaped relegation from Serie C last season with 2 0-0 draws in the play-out tie against Caldero, surviving only based on their higher league position over the season after 2 evenly matched legs. Despite avoiding the drop though, the problems were just beginning. As with many clubs in Serie C this season, financial strains and administrative issues have been the story of the summer, and not far behind that, point deductions have followed. For Triestina, they begun the season with a 7-point deduction. At the time I'd previously included them in my previous video, which has since had to be rewritten and of course changed around. In September 2025, the main reason for that was things becoming significantly worse again. A further 13 points were deducted due to both financial irregularities and not meeting some payment requirements, leaving the team on the pitch to battle back from minus 20 points. They've actually started the season decently and still have a fairly capable squad at this stage, but there is no doubt that this is a developing situation still, and given the nature of the club's current predicament, this video could actually be out of date by the time that FM's released. But no matter what, this side now provides an almighty challenge in Football Manager 2026. The task is very simple. Save the club against all the odds from a massive points deduction before rebuilding a team into one that can compete and get back to the top division in Italian football. I can't imagine this will be a quick, an easy or a simple career path to choose, but the rewards will feel so fantastic if you can achieve the unthinkable and return Triestina to the top tier for the first time in over 65 years. And we finished this episode with a country that got a mention in the last one and a team that got a brief mention on Monday in that section, but like Triestina have experienced an ever-evolving situation, leading them to now feature in a later video. For Yeni Malatyaspor, the past couple of seasons have been a continuing nightmare, with a downward spiral sadly largely contributed to by unfortunate events off the pitch, which we'll try and touch on delicately. For context, the club was only founded in 1986 and having climbed through the amateur and lower leagues in Turkey, reached the pinnacle of the Super League in 2017. This was followed by a 5-year stay in the top flight, with the club even finishing as high as 5th in 2019, leading to a first ever appearance in Europa League qualifying. Just 3 years later though, in 2022, relegation from the top tier was confirmed, with the club's chairman also resigning at the same time. In early 2023 though, football became far less important because a genuine disaster struck the city and region as a destructive earthquake, which many of you of course will have heard about, tragically claimed tens of thousands of lives in Turkey and Syria, including that of first-team goalkeeper at Malatyaspor, Ahmet Turkislam. With football now far from important to the area, the club withdrew from the remainder of the league season, and due to the extensive damage to its facilities, they'd also be unable to take part in a 2023-24 campaign the following year. When they returned for the beginning of the 24-25 campaign last season, unfortunately, a combination of these events mentioned above had taken their toll on football operations too. Financially, the club was in an unsustainable position, the region was still recovering from events 18 months earlier, and the playing squad, quite frankly, was unable to be competitive. Relying on several locally based youth players and extremely limited resources, Malatyaspor failed to pick up a single point during the campaign. Combined with 18 points worth of deductions for financial or administrative reasons, and a further 3 for one match they had to forfeit, this eventually saw the club relegated on minus 21 points, with a staggering goal difference of minus 139, conceding over 150 goals during the season. Sadly, the task in the 3rd tier now seemed impossible this year too. They return after 10 years in the top 2 divisions, but any chance of survival is now all but gone already. Having started the season with a 30-point deduction, the club have since been deducted a further 6, meaning you'd currently be starting this Football Manager career on a daunting minus 36 points. The club is still hamstrung financially and again relies on a young, inexperienced team to try and compete on the pitch. Unfortunately, this has led to an unsurprisingly tough start to the season in real life too. At the time of rewriting and recording this episode though, there was finally some good news from the club last weekend. On the 28th of September 2025, Yeni Malatyaspor managed to gain a 1-1 draw after coming from behind in an away league fixture. For context, this was the first point the club had picked up in 974 days, as the team proudly continues to fight with its limited resources. With all of this in mind, there can be no doubt that this is probably the closest to an impossible challenge we'll ever see in FM26 or Football Manager generally. But do you want to try and prove everyone wrong? Can you keep this proud team in the playable league somehow from a minus 36 point start and eventually lead them back to the Turkish Super League and Europe? It might be the hardest possible task in FM26, but if you do it, there is no doubt you'll go down a legend. So that was part 2 of my FM26 point deduction challenges, though as we touched on in the last video and this one, there are plenty of other choices if these 3 aren't for you either. Let me know if you're going to try managing a club with a points deduction in FM26 and if it's going to be one of these 3 or the 3 we talked about on Monday. Don't forget you can pre-order Football Manager 26 via my Fanatical link now, adding promo code LOADFM26 at checkout for an extra 5% off, or do it automatically by clicking a link in the description below or right above. We've got plenty more of these videos to come, including our survival and in the trenches challenges over the next couple of episodes. So thanks for watching and sticking with us. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. My FM26 plans will be coming soon too. But for now, I'll see you again next time for more FM26 save ideas.